Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Breaking 90 podcast. I'm your host, Alex Harriman, here with my co-host, Jerrika Rydell, and we are two of the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness. Thanks for joining us. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Hey, Jer.
Hey, Alex. How are you?
Good. I'm actually going to steal your thunder here for a second because we're recording this a little bit ahead of schedule and you are coming up on your wedding. Are you changing your name?
I am, yes.
Are you doing it immediately, like on the day of the wedding type of thing?
Like I'm signing the marriage license,
Yeah.
like the day of the wedding, but like it's a while to send it all through and do it all. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I need to I know you guys are listening to this and it's December, but we recorded this episode early. But I need to prepare myself for the name change.
I think I need it. Yeah, and because it's such like a French last name. I said this on the last podcast with Kelly. We recorded one, and she's like, "Oh, I need you to write that one out with pronunciation." I'm like, "No, it's not so bad. You'll get the hang of it."
That's funny.
Yeah.
Awesome. What do you got for us for a topic today?
I want to kind of, I don't say drill you, but kind of interview you, just some quick rapid fire questions on relating to motivation with this new year coming up. Just going to get some advice, maybe see how you're feeling about some random topics I throw at you. I don't know. I think it'd be a really good way to start the new year with some resolution, motivation chats.
Cool. Let's do it.
Okay. So I'm thinking like our clients or anyone that's listening, any of our viewers, it's end of December right now, and they keep saying they're going to start when motivation's high, right? It's like, maybe let's say, even if it's December, I don't know, 25th, it's Christmas, and you're chatting with someone at a party and it's like, yeah, I'll wait 2 weeks and I'll start when motivation's high. First, what would you tell them?
I want you first to consider what that even means. Like what is going to be different between now and January 1st, actually, other than the date on the calendar? What is actually going to change for you? Because we say this, but what does that actually even mean?
Right.
I get where you're coming from because I've felt it too, but you know how silly it sounds, and you know that nothing's actually going to change. Sure, today, if you're listening to this on Christmas Day, then I get it. Like, you're probably going to have a big meal tonight, but that doesn't affect what happens tomorrow or the 27th or the 28th or the 29th. Like, what is actually the magic of January 1st?
Exactly. And what if you started with one thing, even today, that could make your January 1st start date that much easier, right? What if you started consuming more water from now until your big start date? Then making those habit changes will become that much easier and that much more kind of fluid into the next transition. It's like, why can't you start little things now to make that so much more enjoyable?
Well, Kelly and I talked about this recently, and like a lot of the times we think of progress through the holidays being like, I have to come out of the holidays in a better position than I went in, but that's not actually what progress is. Like, progress can be coming out of the holidays in a better position than you would have in years past. And if you change to that mentality, it doesn't require that much to do that. So when you're thinking like, how the hell can I come out of these holidays better off than I went in? That's really hard to do because you've got a lot of obstacles. I get that. But just to come out of the holidays a little bit better than you did last year or the year before, it's not that hard to do. That's what I want you guys to focus on. What are the small changes we could make that would have a tiny little impact that are going to set you up for success come January 1st rather than waiting to start January 1st?
Awesome. Now, okay, so we know that typically this spike in motivations, it's pretty inevitable for those that are excited and wanting change. So how would you help them prepare for this spike in motivation?
So we need to establish our what we call our bare ass minimums, what we're gonna do even on our worst days, our worst weeks. We need to establish our goals, our routines, our schedules. And then we should understand that when motivation's high, all of that's going to happen easier. So, what I'm really getting at is here, typically you've got like 2 to 3 weeks of high motivation at the beginning of the year. It's okay to push yourself a little bit harder during this 2 to 3 weeks. So determine this stuff before that motivation hits. Determine this stuff now if you're listening to this. What do I want my routine to look like? What do I want my schedule to look like? How much am I realistically going to be training? How am I going to be eating? And then during those 2, 3 weeks of high motivation, we could push ourselves a little bit harder, like 10% harder, but you have to be prepared for that fall of motivation that's going to come at the end of January. And when that motivation's gone, what it's going to look like then. If you're like coming out of the gate hot, 100% trying to do everything right, and then the motivation dips, you're not going to be able to shift back to what normal actually looks like. So don't create this big elaborate routine and schedule now that you know you're not going to be able to stick to for the rest of the year. Create a plan now, even if it feels really easy because your motivation's so high. Create a plan now that you can knock out of the park and knock it out of the park.
Right. That's funny because my next question was, how long can you expect them to ride out this motivation for? So, like you mentioned, it's kind of that end of January, early February. I think there's like a quote or like a saying, something about in February or the third week of Jan. There's like a saying, I forget what it's called, but like sad Jan or sad February or something like that. It's just when everyone's like resolutions kind of fall off and the gym gets quiet. And so just anticipate that to happen because something will feel different, right? You'll get back into your routines, your kids are back in sports, and it almost starts to feel like it's not about you anymore and your goals that you set in with that high motivation. So those things are going to happen, like Alex mentioned. So be prepared for that ahead of time.
Blue Monday is January 15th.
Yeah. Yeah, that was what I was thinking. There's like yeah, that's a 2-3 week time frame that you just mentioned, right?
The third Monday in January.
Yes, that's what I was thinking
And
of.
that's different from everybody. Like if especially if you have another like external motivator, like if you've got a wedding coming up or vacation coming
Right.
up or something like that, you might be able to amplify this. But just understand the motivation is going to come and go. When motivation's high, you can increase intensity a little bit, but you have to increase it, and you can only increase it so much that it's not going to be this massive fall when the motivation's gone. Don't set yourself way up on this high pedestal for when motivation dips and then be like, oh, I'm a huge failure because now I can only work out 3 times a week and I can only eat kind of well, right?
Yeah, it's funny because you're kind of leading into every next question. It was advice for avoiding that all or nothing mentality because our motivation so high, so we want to go all in. And you
Mm.
mentioned, increasing by 10%, but not going like throwing all our ducks in a row here and just being like, I'm going to give it my all and then just fall off the wagon as soon as the motivation dips. So we don't want to go into that all or nothing mentality, but we can push a little bit, like Alex mentioned, but just try to keep that consistency over intensity is kind of always that fallback.
Well, most people are gonna increase intensity by like 1,000%, not 10%, because
Yeah.
10% feels like nothing. But when you determine these goals and what your plan is, look at what you have been doing. Like because we have to use facts over feelings when we do this kind of thing, guys. And if you look at what you want to be doing and you're like, yeah, I want to train 4 days a week, and that sounds great. It's like, cool, 4 days a week is a good goal. How much have you been training? Oh, I haven't been training at all the past 2 months. Okay, 4 days a week's gonna be freaking hard then.
Right. Yeah.
So look at what you have been doing kind of over, maybe not over the past week because you've been on holidays and things like that, and that your schedule's probably been thrown off a bit. But what have you actually been doing the past month or two? Build off of that. 5 to 10% increase. Super small.
Cool. No, that's awesome. I'm just going to change gears a little bit, but I just want to get your feelings. Like, how do you feel about New Year's resolutions? And then the second question to that is like, why do other people say they just don't work or they're dumb?
Um,
How do you feel? What your opinion?
I guess mixed feelings.
Yeah, I figured you're gonna say that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of my answers when it comes to health, but I hate the idea of waiting. Like, if you're motivated to make change today.
Yeah.
Because the calendar is not going to change anything for you. So if you're like setting up this big elaborate like 365 days of success, like it's like this is freaking dumb. Start your 365 days of success today. Like like
Why
why
are you
we
waiting?
should never ever wait for a Monday or a first of a month or a first of a year. There's nothing different going to happen there. That
I
being
feel sorry, go ahead.
I love jumping on motivation. Like
Yeah.
if you're motivated enough to make that day planner and make that goal and lay out that whole schedule and routine, like that's freaking awesome. But start now.
Yeah, people always wait for, I'm saying the word season in quotation because they're like this the easiest season in their life, right? It's like, oh, I got nothing going on between now and the next 2 months. I'm gonna start now. It's like, but then what happens when your life becomes a chaotic mess in 2 months from now? And you could have started last month when it was also chaotic, and you could have already established the routines and the habits in place to be able to navigate those, right? And then all of a sudden it hits you like a ton of bricks, and you're getting thrown off the wagon. So it's like, you're right, start now, because no matter what's going to happen, you're going to learn how to navigate that through, if your motivation is high, through kind of the scheduling and writing things out and talking with a coach, right? You'll have that help.
You're you're gonna fail for sure if you only ever take action when you're motivated or if you only ever take action when life is easy. Just like Jared's saying, like you have to learn how to navigate these difficult times, and it doesn't mean that you have to do 100%, but if you wait till January 1st, you're going to really struggle come next December.
Yeah. Yeah. And then kind of the next thing is on the topic of resolutions, like if someone is starting right where this podcast is coming out, it's going to be January 1st. If you are riding high motivation, you're setting that resolution and that goal, like what's some advice to set that?
Um, don't put too much weight on the date, first of all, like I touched on, but I want to touch on it again. So if it's January 2nd right now and you're like, great, I'm already off track with my New Year's resolution, there's no magic between the first and second. Keep moving.
Right.
When you do fall off track with your resolution, and I say when you do because you will, um, don't punish yourself by trying to do extra to catch back up. Just get back on track. That's really important. We can't play catch up, and catch up is a recipe to repeat the cycle of failing. So if you're really, really on track, on track, on track, and you fall off track, no amount of punishment or um yeah, playing catch up is going to help with that. The best thing you can do is just get right back on track because your body will adapt a lot easier in your mind.
Awesome.
The next thing is small increases, 5 to 10% increases max per week. You can have weeks where you have 0% increase or you have a decrease if you need to in your goals, in your intensity. But we don't want to go more than kind of a 5 to 10% increase in total output of or in total intensity from week to week because we're gonna fail, burn out, or injure ourselves. I think those would be the big ones. Like make it really simple and measurable. You've all heard the SMART acronym, I'm sure, so I won't spend time going over that, but we often set really loose goals, like I want to lose 15 pounds. Well, you can't actually you don't have 100% control over the number on the scale. But if I say I want to lose 15 pounds, that's the outcome of what I'm hoping to achieve. I know these are the areas that I could improve. I could walk more, I could sleep better, I could improve my water intake, I could improve my fruit, vegetable, and protein intake. Those are all measurable things that we have 100% control over. So rather than setting a goal on like, I want to lose 15 pounds, which we don't have control over, I'm going to set a goal on, I want to eat 4 servings of protein 80% of the days in this next month. And that's something you have 100% control over,
Love it.
other than something you don't have control over.
Yeah, that's a great example. I always like would say to someone like going into the new year and you're trying to make this and you're talking to your motivation's high and you're thinking about your goals. It's like, what do you give a real big shit about? And how is your life going to be better? Right. It's like what Kelly always talks about is like finding that why. Because if you don't actually give a shit about it and you're just doing it because so and so did it and this person, you know what I mean? Then your life isn't going to become any better from doing it. So you have to see that change personally, so make sure you can answer that question. I think so often people will make goals and resolutions, and they're either, excessively difficult where they're just never going to reach it. Like we talked about realistic, or they set relatively easy goals that they quickly become bored with, right? And we're trying to find that middle ground. So just make sure that it's something that you truly care about and it will actually make a difference in some way, shape, or form. It could be something like we always talk about playing with our grandkids or our kids, trying to get more mobile and just how to make that measurable. Well, I can get on the floor now, whereas I couldn't before, and things of that nature.
The interesting thing is those surface level goals too that you're talking about are often easier to stick to when motivation's high. So like if it's like, oh, I want to lose 15 pounds, that's not that hard to stick to when motivation's high. But if we know that motivation's going to dip after 3 weeks, that goal isn't going to be enough because you're going to be like, well, I did want to lose 15 pounds, but I also don't really care what the number on the scale says. But if I have a deeper why, like I want to be able to age gracefully and continue to play with my grandkids the way that I'm playing with them now, that's always going to be important. Whether motivation's high or low, you're not going to be able to look at yourself and say, no, that's no longer important to me.
Yeah, and I also add to that too. And I encourage people to get curious and like want to learn in this process, right? And I'm sure that's why you're listening to this podcast because you genuinely are interested in health and fitness. But when it comes to setting these types of goals in the health and fitness realm, like make sure you're learning. Listen to a podcast every week. You just don't want to make the mistake of having so much misinformation because Instagram and TikTok told me to do this and do this, right? So and oftentimes people think you have to bring action to whatever your intention is. But if your action is misinformed and you haven't tried to either ask a coach, ask a friend, do some research, listen to a podcast, right? Then you're kind of setting yourself up for a bit of a disaster. So just don't be afraid to learn and be curious and ask questions. And that's what we're here for. It'll make this journey a lifelong journey versus just a fad in the sense.
Love that. Question the things you learn. There's
Yeah.
unlimited free information online, but that doesn't mean we need to act on all of it. Question it. Even this podcast, question it. Ask other people, check with other professionals, ask us, ask your friends, ask your family. Like it's great. Be inquisitive.
Cool. Awesome. That's kind of everything I want to touch on, but is there anything else that you're thinking of?
No, it's wonderful. I think it leaves people with some thoughts and considerations headed into the New Year's. And obviously, as you guys look to implement this, you know that we're going to be taking on new clients in the new year. And if you're looking to really, really amplify your results and put all of this into place, reach out and have that conversation with us, have that discovery call with us. We'll map it out. We'll see if or how we can help you. And either way, we're going to point you in a good direction. So we'd love the opportunity just to chat with you and see where that conversation takes us.
Awesome. Um, I'll leave with you a tip. My tip is if you're on the same topic as goals, right? If you're setting goals and maybe it feels really far away, or maybe you are getting a little bit bored of the idea, but it's still important to you. Don't be afraid to maybe like write on a list of things that excite you, or maybe reward you, things you wouldn't normally do. Like maybe you're someone who never gets their nails done, but that's something that would be like such a awesome treat. Well, when you hit that specific goal, like go treat yourself to something just to keep it a little bit exciting, because sometimes it does get monotonous even though it is important at the back end, but it's just something to look forward to when you do hit those little small in quotations, because they're still big wins, but when you hit the little small milestones along the way.
That's great. And the thing with wins is wins build momentum, momentum builds motivation. Don't ever discredit the small wins because that's where it all starts from. So celebrate every win along your journey.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, guys. appreciate you being here. Please take a minute to rate this episode, review this episode, share it with a friend. Um, get the word out there. We always appreciate that. So thanks again. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you on the next one.